Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we have enough news and rumor review here to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at some signings from our past couple of days, some injury updates, some pieces of news, and some trade rumors involving the Wings, Sens, and Kings. We'll touch on all this coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, tell all your friends the best hockey content on YouTube is right here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. So if you can, leave a like, leave a comment, love your guys' opinion, leave subscribe. We're trying at 750 in the next couple of weeks, and 90% of you guys who view my videos are not subscribed, so hit that subscribe button. Also don't forget to stay tuned for my live streams. By the time this video hits YouTube, it will almost be live stream time, or it'll be just after my live stream, but we will have a 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time live stream today covering the Buffalo Sabres taking on the Boston Bruins, which will be a very interesting game. And then we'll also have a live stream on Thursday talking about the Stars and the Wild. We'll have an unannounced game on Friday. I'm not exactly sure how many games there will be on Friday, so closer to that date, we will figure out which game we're going to be streaming on Friday. And then we'll try and do as many Game 7s on the weekend as we can, depending on how many series there are and how things go. But we'll try and get as many Game 7 live streams as we can. And on top of that, don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. So we got a very interesting news and rumor review here today. I'm going to start off with one signing from our past couple of days, and it was in Nashville. 24-year-old undrafted center prospect Vladar Pinchuk has signed a 1-year, $1.025 million AAV deal with the Nashville Predators. That'll be at the start of next year. Pinchuk has been playing over in the KHL the past couple of years, where he had 31 goals and 66 points in 65 KHL games this past year. So we've seen some KHL free agents come over from the KHL, do really good. Zub's one of those guys, Mikheyev, Kuzmenko. There's a couple of other guys out there too, but yeah, there's a couple of really solid, mature KHL prospects that come over to the NHL and do really good. Pinchuk might be one of them, so we'll have to wait and see on that, but good to see that the Preds sent undrafted KHL prospect Pinchuk, and he will join them for next season, so very interesting to note there. Next, going over to a couple of injury updates, as that was the only signing from our past couple of days. So first, Victor Arvidsson left Game 4 for the Boston Bruins with upper body injury and didn't return, so that's not great there, and he may miss Game 5 later tonight. On top of that, Nikita Zadorov may miss Game 5 later tonight with an undisclosed injury, so Boston might be down a couple of key pieces as they're dealing with a couple of injuries heading into a do-or-die Game 5. When it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes, they got a couple of injuries. Their series did end on Saturday. However, Nikolai Ehlers didn't play on Saturday for the Hurricanes due to a lower body injury and is out day-to-day. They're probably going to have about a week off until the second round, so that might give Ehlers enough time to get back into game action. And then Alex Nikishin suffered a concussion in Game 4, and he might be out for a little bit of time. Once again, that extra rest will help him potentially get back in time for round 2, but we shall see. So some injuries there for Carolina. Josh Manson missed Game 4 for the Colorado Avalanche with a body injury. Once again, they swept, so they're going to have a little bit of a layoff until round 2, so that could help Manson get back. Nils Lundqvist left Game 4 after suffering a cut to the face from a skate blade, which wasn't overly good, and now it seems like he will not play in Game 5 later tonight, so that's a bad blow there for Dallas. Lundqvist has actually been a pretty decent third-pair defenseman in the postseason. Matt Zuccarello missed his third consecutive game in Game 4 with an upper body injury. However, there is some positive remarks that he could be back tonight for Game 5, which would be a big boost there for the Minnesota Wild. And then Vladar did play in Game 4 for the Philadelphia Flyers after suffering upper body injury in Game 3. So great news there, but Vladar was able to go for the Philadelphia Flyers. So some very interesting injury updates from our past couple of days. Next, going over to some recalls and reassignments. When it comes to some recalls, the Canes recalled Charlie Alexis Legao, once again potentially due to the fact that Nikishin's injured. They just needed some more added defensive depth. And then on top of that, Vegas has recalled Bauman and Conley from the AHL. Both of them having pretty good seasons over in the AHL. Bauman's had a couple of stints at the NHL level, so the Knights just wanted to add some more forward insurance, so not too surprising there. And then when it comes to some reassignments, with the Kings season now over, they have reassigned Jared Wright to the AHL, so he can go help their AHL affiliates. David Reinbacher, after a short stint in Montreal, has now gone back to the AHL, so he's going to go back to help their AHL affiliates. And Tarek Paraskak in Washington was assigned from the WHL to the AHL, and he'll go and help the Capitals AHL affiliate. So some very interesting reassignments from our past couple of days. And lastly, we're going over to a few quick pieces of news. So once again, nothing too substantial here. Ian Mitchell, former Bruin, Red Wing, a couple of other teams he's played for, has signed over in the National League. So Mitchell will be heading overseas for next season. So not too surprising there. And there's apparently some interest for Daniil Miromanov, who's currently signed under contract with Calgary and will be a pending UFA in the offseason to go over to the KHL, where I think he used to play a couple of years ago. So after a stint with Vegas and Calgary, it looks like Miromanov might also be heading overseas. So very interesting to note there. When it comes to some game updates from over the past couple of days, Matvei Michkov was surprisingly a scratch in last night's game for the Philadelphia Flyers. So very interesting note there. That's brought up a lot of questions about Michkov's future in Philadelphia. I don't think I'd read too much into that, but Michkov has not had an overly great playoffs, so we shall see what comes of that. And then Tristan Jarry was actually a starter for the Edmonton Oilers in Game 4 on Sunday for the Edmonton Oilers. So once again, not too surprising because the Oilers usually change goaltenders in round 1, but it's very interesting to note there that Jarry was able to get the crease for Game 4. So very interesting to note there. When it comes to a fine and potential suspension, Zadorov was fined $5,000 for cross-checking. Now, of course, there was no suspension. However, he still may miss tonight's game due to that injury, but Zadorov was fined for an action that came in Sunday's game against Buffalo. And then there is going to be a suspension for Ridley Greig. He has had, I think it was an in-person hearing suspension, so he can't be suspended for more than 5 games. But during that Ottawa Carolina Game 4, one of the Senators players had a Carolina Hurricane player in a headlock, and Greig was just punching him up in his head with another player having him in a headlock. So that has earned himself a hearing, and it's probably going to be like a 3 or 4 game suspension. It'll probably be for the start of next year's regular season. So once again, it was a bad play, terrible play. I don't really like that play from Greig, and it's going to earn him a suspension at some point for some amount of games. So very interesting to note there, but keep your eye on a really Greig suspension update. And lastly, with the LA Kings being eliminated on Sunday, the career of Andrei Kopitar has finally come to an end. So very interesting to note there, Kopitar finishes his career with 452 goals, 1,316 points, and 1,521 games with the Los Angeles Kings, including winning 2 cups in 2012 and 2014. I think he had a couple of Selke trophies in there as well. All around, really great player. Had been a leader and captain of that team for so long, and now it's going to be a big hole that he's going to leave in Los Angeles. I mean, he finished his career amongst the best in LA Kings history. I think he's had like the most points in Kings history, the most assists in Kings history. He's like top 5 in goals in Kings history, and he was one of the best defensive forwards in the entire game for a long period of time. So all props to Kopitar. He was able to get them a couple of cups. He actually only advanced past round 1 3 straight years in 12, 13, 14 in his career, but was able to get them a couple of cups. So very interesting note there, but one of the best ever Los Angeles Kings players, and Andrei Kopitar is officially retired. So very interesting to note there. And lastly, we're going over to a couple of trade rumors. We have 3 trade rumors here. One that was from an article I saw recently, and 2 that are just my own personal trade rumors that I'm speculating I think could happen this offseason. So we're going to start off with the one from Max Bultman, who I think is in The Athletic. He was talking about the Detroit Red Wings and mentioned 2 potential trade targets that they could try and move in the offseason, and that is JT Compher and Michael Rasmussen. Now, he says that Compher was brought in after Kopp didn't really overperform the first year of his contract to be the team's second-line center, and Compher really hasn't been that solid second-line center that they're paying him to be right now. Kopp this year has actually started to get a little more closer to that second-line center potential, still more of a third-liner, but he is closer now to being a second-liner. So with that in mind, it seems like Compher might just be an expendable piece. I think he's got 1 or 2 more years left after this year at a $5.1 million cap hit. So he's still got a little bit of term left. He's on a pretty high cap hit, so I'm not sure how many teams would want him. But I could see the Red Wings try and trade him to free up a little bit of cap space and maybe try and rework that top 9. Another guy that seems to be coming up, according to Boltman, is Rasmussen. Rasmussen's a pretty decent third liner. He's a big body, hard to play against. He didn't have a bad season last year, but I think he could still be a little bit better. So he is on the younger side of things. I think he signed for $3.2 million AAV for the next 2 seasons. So I could see some teams have some interest in him. Bigger body guy, can produce, play on the third line. I could see some teams have some interest in that. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Definitely going to be some moves happening this offseason for the Troyes to try and rework themselves to be a little bit more competitive and finally make the playoffs next year. And apparently, according to Boltman, 2 names to potentially watch out for will be Compher and Rasmussen, and I could see those guys be potentially captains or maybe just like a fresh start sort of scenario in Rasmussen's case for the Red Wings, so I'll have to keep our eye on that. Next, going over to two trades I could see happen in the offseason, and they're both involved in the two teams who just got eliminated. Now, I will have an offseason preview video in a couple of weeks talking about the Senators and the Kings, but I want to really just address two potential trades we could see for these two teams. Now, for Los Angeles, as we just talked about, Kopitar has retired, so that's going to leave them a huge hole in the center group. They already had a hole after trading Philippe Deneau, and now they're going to have another huge hole by losing Andrei Kopitar. They have Byfield, who I think can be a pretty solid 1 or 2 line center, and I think going forward he's going to have to be for them. But I would not be one bit surprised if with Kopitar leaving, the Kings go all out to try and find a top 2 center this offseason, and I think it's going to be something that's high on their priority list. And something that came to mind, in my opinion, that I think they could really try and figure out is what if they tried to go after Vincent Trocheck in New York? Now, the reason why I'm thinking this is not only is Trocheck a really solid second-line center, he has some really good defensive aspects. He can also produce really well offensively on a very cheap cap hit, but he had some pretty good chemistry in New York with Artemi Panarin, who is now in Los Angeles for the next couple of years. So would that make some sense for LA? Like, I think it would be a pretty high ask. Like, I think the sort of package you're looking for is a solid, potentially NHL-ready young prospect, a roster player, and maybe a draft pick. So my projected package, just off the top of my head, would be something like a 2026 first rounder, which would be, I think, like 18th or 19th overall this year, as well as Kirill Kirsanov, someone like that, who's a really solid defensive prospect, and Trevor Moore, who can help them both now and potentially in the future. He's a little bit of an older forward, but I think he could definitely work with that New York Rangers team. So that sort of a deal is what I'm thinking would probably get done for Los Angeles to try and get Trocheck from New York. It might have to be a little bit more, but like adding Trocheck in New York, having a Trocheck Byfield 1-2 punch down the middle, having Trocheck play with Panarin. Those two have had insane chemistry over the past couple of years with New York. I could see that be a really solid move there for the Kings if they really wanted to try and continue to go for it next year. So once again, no one said this, no one's linked them together. I just think with Kopitar now retiring, them having a whole second line center, and with the insane chemistry those two had in New York, going after Trocheck might be a very smart move for Los Angeles. So I'll let you guys thoughts on what you think about that in the comment section below. And lastly, Brady Tkachuk. There's been a couple of reports out there who said that not out of the realm of possibility that the Sens at the very least explore a Brady Tkachuk trade in the offseason. He's got the upcoming season and the following season left on his contract. I think he's making just over $8 million. He's a really solid guy, but in the playoffs, he was basically a ghost. I don't think he put up any points. He was not as physical. He might have been nursing an injury, but he wasn't as impactful as his brother Matthew was for the Florida Panthers. So that has led a lot of people to potentially trade him. Now, a lot of teams would love to have him. And once again, Tkachuk is the team's captain. I think if they're only moving Tkachuk if they can get a package that really does upgrade their team. So it have to be for the right deal. And Tkachuk does have a full no movement clause, so he controls everything. So I'm not sure if the Sens would really want to move him with Tkachuk having full control, but you also don't want to let him walk if he does wind up not signing in a couple of years' time. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason, but a potential Tkachuk trade, so long as he says it's okay, that I could see happening would be packaging Tkachuk with maybe like a second-round pick and a prospect to Nashville to try and pry Philip Forsberg out of Nashville. Now, this is a little bit of an out there sort of situation, but I do wonder about this. I think Tkachuk could be really well in Nashville. He could be a little bit closer to where his ties are in St. Louis. And this sort of deal would help Ottawa get an improvement. One of their problems in the playoffs was that their goal scoring dried up. Adding a lethal scorer like Forsberg, who knows how to put the puck in the net, might not be a bad idea for that Ottawa Senators team. Once again, it would cost them Tkachuk, maybe a couple of other assets, but I think if you're the Senators, you could potentially try and do this. Tkachuk would definitely help that Predators top six. It would help them go for another playoff push, and Forsberg would provide that goal scoring level that the Ottawa Senators really need on that team. So once again, this is a little bit out there of a trade. Tkachuk would have to approve it. The Predators would have to be okay with trading Forsberg, but that's the sort of trade I could see the Senators do if they were to trade Brady Tkachuk. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Is there a chance Brady Tkachuk gets dealt in the offseason, or is he most likely going to stay with Ottawa going into next year? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that. Plus, could Trocheck go to Los Angeles, and do you think those two players in Detroit get moved in the offseason? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that down in the comment section below. That's all I want to talk about for today. Once again, if you haven't already, already, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, tell all your friends. The best hockey content on YouTube is right here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. So if you can, definitely subscribe. It really does help with the channel. Leave a comment. We're trying to hit 750 subscribers in the very near future. On top of that, don't forget to stay tuned for my live video later today at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time between Boston and Buffalo. Also, don't forget to stay tuned for my live stream on Thursday between Minnesota and Dallas. And Friday, we're going to have another live stream, and then we're going to try and hit some Game 7s on Saturday and Sunday. Once again, if we can, so we'll try and do that. Once again, if you guys really do want to support the channel, I have set up a Buy Me a Coffee page. It's a page where you guys can go to donate some money to help support the channel. So if you can, definitely go over to it. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. And I also do a blog, talk about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I've linked to that down in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.